You have all last week Doug Peterson saying we're not going to go to Hurts because if we go to Hurts, that means we've given up on the season. And all the reporters and the fans are asking why is he not playing more. So of course, Doug Peterson kowtows to the media and the fans and starts giving Hurts more first team reps this week. And we heard that he's going to be more involved in the game plan. Well, Hurts was out there twice this game. Twice. That's it. In a week where we expected to see a ton of more Hurts, he was out there twice. And not in a row. Hurts went out, and then after he completed a short pass to Alshon Jeffrey, they take him out and put Wentz in. And then they're doing this kind of switch back and forth where it goes Wentz, then Hurts, then Wentz. So you create no rhythm for the quarterbacks. They don't have any comfort in what they're playing. There's not any use to the game plan. And you just keep switching them out without any real plan. So Doug Peterson, I got to ask, what are you doing? What's the plan with Hurts?
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, ChadBurn, and we are back with another episode, a special episode coming out on a Tuesday rather than our usual Monday release date because we had last night on Monday Night Football the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Seattle Seahawks, and I thought it only appropriate that with all this going on and with the game being on Monday night that I wait till the next day to at least give my reaction to the game as it unfolded to see, where we stood. Maybe there would be a chance the Eagles, squeak one out. Could it be a trap game for the Seahawks? Could the Eagles come around, turn their season around in this pivotal game against a really powerful Seahawks offense and the Seahawks team with one of the worst defenses in the league? Could the offense start going, getting on a roll? And we figured we'd wait till then to discuss that and see how it all unfolded. Unfortunately, the game kind of went as we expected, and we'll get more into that and kind of really are the major takeaways since there are some big ones, especially in that one as it was a bit of a doozy. This is also a special episode this week since last weekend was the Thanksgiving, last Thursday I should say, was Thanksgiving with 2 Thanksgiving days, so it gives us a little time to kind of talk a little Thanksgiving, a little football, go over the storylines for week 12 as well as kind of the preview for now the Wednesday game that will be between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, a game that was set to go off last Thursday, pushed to Sunday, pushed to Tuesday, and now finally pushed to Wednesday due to COVID-19 concerns and kind of the protocols the NFL has in place for that. So on Thanksgiving, on Thursday, there was it was supposed to be 3 full games, obviously one for at 1 o'clock, one in the 4:30 hour, and then one obviously at the night game with the 8:20 p.m. time slot. The night game was moved due to a rise in COVID positive tests on the Baltimore Ravens team, including, I believe it was Lamar Jackson, others on that team, and really, getting the positive results. None of them seem to be showing symptoms, but still the results come through positive. You need time to be able to make sure you get negative results and continue to show that it is not spread throughout the entire team and the organization. So that game had been pushed back, but we still had 2 games on that day. And it was also a day that allowed us to really think back on the year and think about what we were thankful for as sport fans, what we're thankful for on our team. Now, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, there was not much to be thankful for. I remember going through my list of being thankful, and I thought to myself, thankful for the health, and I get to do what I love every day, and that I made it through this year and this crazy year without getting sick, that I was able to kind of be able to stay inside while others are not able to and continue to have a living and be able to be secure. So I was blessed to have that opportunity, and I know I am lucky in that sense. I was thankful to have my loved ones all safe. I had no family members get infected. There's no one close to me that's been infected, knock on wood. It has been, luckily everyone that I care about and is close to me, my family and friends, have been able to get through this slightly unscathed. So that has been something also to be thankful for. But I then turned to, obviously, since it's a podcast, I want to think about it and kind of how I would approach it. But I wanted to look at sports and what I'm thankful for in sports. And while there's many things to be thankful for as we build up in the other teams, such as the Philadelphia 76ers, there seems to be a lot of promise there for a future and a good team there. There's some hope in different areas of different sports. My main passion, obviously, is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I had nothing really to be thankful for there. This team has digressed. The quarterback is getting worse. The coach seems to be on a complete island and lost, and the whole organization seems to be frayed. So from a fan standpoint, there was not much to be thankful for, but there was a lot to be thankful for, I would say, in the world of sports, of football especially. Particularly because in this kind of crazy year, not knowing what would go on, the crazy circumstances are surrounding how this season would unfold with COVID-19, without fans in the stadium, with the very strict precautions for players and how they needed to conduct themselves throughout this pandemic. I was at least thankful that there was football, that there are games, that there are stories that we can talk about, and there are plays we can watch, and there are, at least as a postseason, there are things to come that will happen in football. And that is definitely something to be thankful for. And I was just happy that there has been at least a season to even discuss. And on top of that, with that kind of theme of there being football and things we can talk about, well, one game was pushed back on COVID. We still had a slate of 2 games, one of them being on the first hour slot with the tradition of having the Lions play on Thanksgiving Day, were the Texans versus the Lions. And it was amazing because it was an absolute slugfest from start to finish. While the Texans would get the upper hand and in the end really win by a large margin, the first half was competitive. It was one of the highest scoring first halves in Thanksgiving history with the combined points of the two teams. The Texans would walk away with this one at the win of 41-25, with Deshaun Watson throwing 17-28 for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns. A very efficient game for Deshaun Watson. Not throwing a lot, only getting certain completions done, but everything either mounting in big yardage plays or touchdowns. He had a rating of 150.4, and it was just insane to see that happen on Thanksgiving, especially Deshaun Watson, who has had a rough year, but finally the Texans seem to be getting on the same point. You also had Will Fuller, who went off for 6 receptions, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A monster game for him, and a game that would then come into question that performance, because shortly after that game, I believe it was on Saturday or Sunday, could be yesterday as well, Will Fuller is then tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. So the man has a breakout game, but then turns out he had actually been supplementing with performance-enhancing drugs. Maybe that's the reason why he's been playing well. Maybe there's other parts to it, but it was at least shocking to see that Will Fuller was tested positive. Matthew Stafford himself had a pretty good game of 26 of 42, 295 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. In the end, it is not enough. We did see, obviously, that Adrian Peterson had himself a bit of a game early on, getting 2 touchdowns, goal line runs, since he only totaled 55 yards, but able to kind of exert and show his presence in the goal line situations, being a huge factor for the red zone play for the Lions. DeAndre Swift not getting those touches, it going to Adrian Peterson, who has not had what we'd say a typically productive season for him, but it's still able to get it done early. So as we mentioned, the first half seemed to be close. It would be a long slugfest of a game, but as it kind of continued onward, Deshaun Watson got in a groove, and the Texans were able to soundly beat the Lions, as we mentioned, of a score of 41-25. That then transitioned to our second game on Thanksgiving, which was an NFC East heavyweight match between the Washington football team and the Cowboys, both teams coming in at 3-7. It was an opportunity for one of them to take the lead in the division and really kind of continue to exert some type of force on a division that is just despairingly bad. It's so bad. Like, I try and find words to creatively cover what is the NFC East, but in reality, it is just a terrible division with very bad teams, and it is just unsettling to watch games that seem to have meaning because there are playoff implications, but for records that are so abysmal that they don't deserve to really be in the even conversation of making the playoffs. However, this game did unfold. It was a rivalry game, and the Cowboys were destroyed by the Washington Redskins. Another score of 41-16. It was one of the highest wins by the Washington Redskins against the Cowboys, one of the biggest wins for them on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, it's just a long list of things that for the Washington football team, this was a big win against the Cowboys. Now, while Andy Dalton did show up and go 25 for 35 for 215 yards, 1 touchdown and interception, Zeke Elliott had nothing going for him. He had a total of 32 yards on 10 carries, an abysmal 3 yards per carry. It's uncharacteristically bad for Ezekiel Elliott. We thought he might be able to kind of right the ship as the season went on, but clearly without Dak Prescott out there, when it's all on him, he is not able to perform as the sole offensive playmaker on that team. There needs to be complementary pieces around him. He needs a good line. He needs a quarterback that can take attention away from him. Without that, it just does not work. On the other side, with the passing game for Dalton, he was able to connect with Amari Cooper for 6 times for 112 yards and a touchdown. So we know that the receivers are clicking. We know that game is starting to roll along. The real issue is Zeke Elliott cannot give Andy Dalton the help he needs in order to be a successful quarterback in this league, because the game cannot rest on Andy Dalton's arm. If it does, it is over from the start. He's not the quarterback that's going to win it with his arm. You need to have a run game, and unfortunately, Zeke Elliott is not there. However, the Washington football team, now they had a run game. Antonio Gibson goes for 20 carries for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was just unstoppable that day. It seemed that it was the perfect setting for Antonio Gibson. He was able to take advantage of that defense. He was getting big chunk plays at a time. We've seen it throughout the season. Antonio Gibson is coming into form as a lead back for that Washington football team, but this was a big statement game against a divisional rival. There's not much better than that. It was beautiful to watch. If the Washington football team can continue to get that run game going, I think that they can be easily favorites to win this division. I know the Giants are starting to click, but the Washington football team has something there. Alex Smith is going to be conservative. Again, only 149 yards in that game in a win where they had 41 points. But with their front four on their defense, which are able to constantly disrupt other teams, no matter how good that team is, the front four with Kerrigan, Chase Young, and I think Ioannidis and one other in there, I mean, they are absolutely destroying offensive lines. They just don't stand a chance. Chase Young is sensational this year. He is proving why he's the number 2 overall pick in the draft. He's crazy off the end. I mean, he did ruin the season for Joe Burrow with a low hit, but in general, he has been an absolute star right now in the defense, and he's only going to get better as time goes on. So I think if you have Alex Smith, while not getting a lot of yards, just careful with the ball and safe with it. You develop a strong run game with Antonio Gibson going with it. I think that you can only go up from there. And I think that they have a lot more pieces to be competitive than the Giants. I know the Giants are going to be out with Daniel Jones for a little while, so we'll see how it goes with Colt McCoy. They have a lot of weapons on offense. They have a defense that's coming in its own. But right now, I think the Washington football team is the better team, and they might win this one, the NFC East. As we mentioned, they won that game 41-16, taking a lead in the NFC East 4-7 with a record 4-7. Now, the Giants later on would go to win their game in this Sunday, so it would end up being a tie in first place between the Giants and the Washington football team. I think it'll come down to who has the better head-to-head matchup for that one, because I think both schedules are pretty weak for both the football team and for the Giants. They really have an easy schedule ahead of them. Only a few tough teams here and there, teams with winning records. Unlike the Cowboys and the Eagles, they have a schedule with a lot of teams that have losing records. So we should see how that goes. I think they're going to have close records all the way to the end. But I am putting my money on the Washington football team to take this sad, sad division title and make it into the playoffs. But now we look at the rest of the storylines for the NFL in Week 12. There were some huge games, some great games that I wanted to highlight. We're going to look at particularly 3 games I want to focus on that just seemed to be, they were exciting. It was what we expected. It was just, they were great matchups this week. The first one, obviously, is a battle for the AFC South between the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. This was a game I'd been looking forward to all week. I mentioned it last week on the show that I thought this was going to be a pivotal game for these teams, an opportunity for them to really get at it and really start, taking control of this division in the South. Both teams have had some statement wins recently. They've had some, they've won against very good teams. They're showing that they are one of the top teams in the league and that when they are going, they can beat anyone out there. And we saw it's particularly with the defense of the Colts and the running game of the Tennessee Titans. And we were going to say, how will the Tennessee Titans fare against the Colts in this round 2 matchup? Colts took the win in the first one pretty soundly by getting a strong defense stranglehold on the Tennessee Titans. So it was on the Titans to come forward with a game plan where they could capitalize with their run game and be able to take advantage of this defense. I didn't think it was going to stand much of a chance. The Indianapolis Colts have proven that they are a resilient and smart defense and are able to adapt depending on the playbook of the offensive team they are up against. But this one was all Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was able to just keep going at this defense and wear them down until there was nothing left of them. Derrick Henry was able to go for 27 carries, 178 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He is already over 1,000 yards on the season. He is clearly the best running back now. I mean, I have passed this crown around several times, week to week, kind of seeing the performances. Dalvin Cook, I thought, was going to be the man to really continue to carry forward the lead rusher of this league and continue to be the one that we saw as the top running back, with Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara battling behind for second and third. But after a week where Dalvin Cook went to the blue 10 and seems to be injured, it doesn't seem to be serious, but at least be injured for now, Derrick Henry has not let up, and in fact has gotten better as the weeks have gone on, and he is clearly trying to keep the crown that he had from last year, being the league leading rusher last year, and it looks like that's going to be the case this year as well. I mean, he just can't be stopped. It's amazing to see when you have a vaunted defense like the Colts, who are just able to seem to build a style depending on who their opponent is and really scheme their way to victory. They just had no answers for Derrick Henry. I mean, when you have someone with that speed, with that size, continually running downhill at you and pounding the front line, eventually he's going to get the second level. And if he is going to continue to wear down the linebackers, I mean, cornerbacks can't tackle Derrick Henry, right? It has to be either a tackle early on at the line of scrimmage or, at least by a linebacker, because the size difference with the corners, unless you're wrapping up expertly around the legs, he's going to blow right through you. So once he gets through past the linebackers up to the next level, it is done and over with. And we saw that time and time again. Very impressive to see from King Henry. He was able to, basically on his performance alone in that first half, the Titans were up 35-14, and the Colts just really were not able to come back enough. I think the closest it was at one point, I think it was about 2:30 left in the fourth quarter. The Colts kind of cut the lead to 38-26. But on the ensuing play after that touchdown, there was an onside kick, and A.J. Brown was able to just, I don't know how he timed this perfectly, but catch it, run through the gap, and run for a touchdown while being a part of the hand special teams out there to kind of catch the onside ball. It could not have gone more perfectly for the Tennessee Titans, especially on that play. So the Colts were out of it once that was scored. Other stat lines to note: Ryan Tannehill was 13-22 for 221 yards and a TD. He also was able to connect with A.J. Brown along with that touchdown on the onside kick by the Colts for 98 yards on 4 receptions and 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown also had a big reception where he's able to basically seemed to be about a slant route, catch the ball, run across the defense, and just lose the defenders as he got into the open field. Something about A.J. Brown that we always forget is the speed he has. He is a big wide receiver. We sometimes always attribute his success to getting on top of the cornerbacks, able to high point the ball, able to use his big body to get the ball in a tough situation, especially in the red zone, since he is tied for first, as we saw last night in the graphic, with DK Metcalf for most touchdowns from the draft class that they were both drafted in 2 years ago. So he is able to use his body in the red zone, but he also has speed in the open field, and when he is able to turn on, there's no one that's going to catch him. And A.J. Brown was able to burn several Colts defenders in order to capitalize on a couple plays. So you had that one where it was a beautiful play for the Tennessee Titans. On the Colts side of the ball, Phillip Rivers goes 24 for 42 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. The run game wasn't really going anywhere. Nyheim Hines had a couple great catches out of the backfield, but without Jonathan Taylor, Wilkins and Nyheim Hines weren't able to really get it rolling. You did have, though, at least Jacoby Brissett, who was able to score 2 touchdowns on 4 carries in the red zone. So at least you had some success there as well. But in general, the Colts just weren't able to get enough offense to keep up with the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans were able to use their defense this time to really lock down. And unfortunately, the Colts just had no answer for Derrick Henry. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of teams. When the Tennessee Titans can start running the ball effectively, it's all over. And that's what we saw there. The next game that I thought was very interesting to look at was obviously the Vikings versus the Panthers, where the Vikings were able to actually get the lead off of PAT from a touchdown they scored. They would drive down the field, score the touchdown, tie the game, and then the PAT to then take the lead. Good to note that as well, that on that PAT, they actually missed the first one. I believe it was tipped at the line, but they missed the first extra point. And unfortunately, due to a penalty by the Panthers, the Vikings were able to take another stab at that point after attempt and were able to make it good and take that lead. But the Panthers still had a chance. Even with the Vikings taking the lead with 45 seconds left, including that point after attempt, so it's 28-27. The Panthers had a small chance. The first part of trying to get that with that success was a miracle throw of 35 yards to Curtis Samuel. The second part was then he had 2 short plays, right? Teddy Bridgewater was able to get 2 short plays to both Mike Davis and Robbie Anderson to get out of bounds for 4 and 12 yards respectively, so getting into that field goal range. So you had gone the first part, getting a big chunk play to get you close to in the field goal range. Then 2 smart plays to get out of bounds, so you're stopping the clock, but you're still able to get some yardage there. So then finally, you're having field goal range. It's a 54-yarder. So with 6 seconds left, they go for the field goal, and unfortunately, Jonathan Sly is not able to connect. It was a great game back and forth all the way throughout. Teddy Bridgewater going 19 for 36 for 267 yards, a touchdown and an INT, with Robbie Anderson going for 4 receptions for 94 yards. On the other side of the ball, Kirk Cousins 34-45 with 307 yards and 3 touchdowns, with Dalvin Cook getting 18 carries, 61 yards. I will note that obviously Dalvin Cook did go off with an injury, kind of a limp, but everything from Mike Zimmer is pointing towards that it's not that serious, that he will be okay, and that he'll play within the next 2 games for sure. A great stat that happened in this game was the Panthers that kept him in this one for sure was Chin on the Panthers defense. The first time this ever happened in NFL history, on 2 consecutive drives, was able to create 2 fumbles, pick up the fumbles, and score touchdowns on 2 straight drives. Chin for the Carolina Panthers was able to get the ball away and fumble it against the Vikings. And on 2 drives in a row, which is what's really shocking, is that it happened in succession so quickly, but able to get those and score touchdowns. So those 2 touchdowns, the 14 points, were able to keep the Panthers in this game. It was a great defensive performance. Unfortunately, while the Panthers did have the lead late in the game, 27-21, the Vikings were able to just continue to work down the field and get that touchdown to, I believe it was Chad Beebe was the wide receiver to get the game, to give the game-winning lead for the Vikings. Again, if they hadn't gotten the offsides, maybe it would have been tied because they didn't get the point after attempt. It's a lot of questions up in the air for the Panthers. I will say, while the Panthers have been losing, they have a losing record, there is a lot to be excited about. We thought that this would be much more of a transition season with Teddy Bridgewater kind of getting used to being at the helm, getting the weapons around him. CMC has been out for most of the season, and you have a new coach. But with all those different pieces, it seems to be working. They do have a culture. They've been a lot of close games. Next year, the kind of question will be, can they close out those close games? Can they finish it when they need to late in the games and be able to score when they need to? I think yes. I think it's continued to go up from here. Once you have a healthy CMC back, Christian McCaffrey ready to roll, I think it becomes a more potent and more dangerous Panthers team, and I think you have a coach that's going to really bring them there. So while they're losing, it is still a lot of good stories for the Carolina Panthers, a lot of stuff to be hopeful for and to believe that they're going to continue to have success. For the Vikings, you're always happy when you can see Kirk Cousins create a game-winning drive. That does not happen often. The pressure has been tough on him throughout the year, but we are now seeing that he's able to connect, that he's able to get the ball rolling, and even with Dalvin Cook on the sideline, they are able to have some sustained success, and that's a big key. We always know the Vikings are going to be a run-first team, but when they need to rely on Kirk Cousins, can they get it done? And they seem to this time. So great game up front, beautiful finish to it, and really exciting since the Panthers had a shot to win this one and just could not get it done. And finally, we'll look at the Sunday night game, which was really, this was actually 425. This game was so good, I thought it was a Sunday night game because it really should have been. But between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, this is exactly what you wanted to see, a matchup of the ages between the young, possibly, ceiling of greatest quarterback of all time, and Tom Brady, who is currently the greatest quarterback of all time. We know that for sure. The matchup we've been waiting for all year, we wanted to see them play. We knew that this would be a good game, and it did not disappoint. Namely, the Kansas City Chiefs went off big to start the game. You had Tyreek Hill get over 200 yards in the first quarter alone. 2 touchdowns and over 200 yards. He could not be stopped in this game. Tyreek Hill was able to just get behind the cornerbacks constantly, and with his speed and with the accuracy of Patrick Mahomes with the deep ball, there was nothing that they could do. Patrick Mahomes was spot on with Tyreek Hill. He continued to just dominate early in that game, and while he did not have as much success in the rest of the quarters, he did have another touchdown and a few yards. He was still 200 yards for his quarter. That is unheard of for a wide receiver. Patrick Mahomes in this game will go 37-49 for 462 yards and 3 touchdowns. averaging still over 300 yards per game. Patrick Mahomes continued to solidify why he is the best quarterback in the league. Tyreek Hill ended after that 200-yard first quarter, 13 receptions for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Travis Kelce, which is sad because he had a stat line that is also impressive, 82 yards and 8 receptions. But Tyreek Hill was just so much better that we don't even think about Kelce that much there. It's crazy, but that's how it was. On the other side of the ball, Tom Brady, 27-41 for 345 yards. A great game for him as well. 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, and key interceptions as well that really stopped the momentum for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and giving them a chance to win this one. I don't expect this all the time from Tom Brady, but that just was the case. Rob Gronkowski was a big beneficiary of 6 receptions for 106 yards. Glad to see him kind of get back into his own, build that relationship with Tom Brady. And Chris Godwin, 8 receptions for 97 yards. Ronald Jones also did great on the rushing game. You expect to see a little more activity out of the Buccaneers, but what really hurt them was the start of this game. They did not come ready to play. In the first 4 straight drives for the Tampa Bay, the way they started off, 3 out of 4 of them ended up being 3-and-outs. So only 1 drive out of the first 4 drives ended up having positive yards before they were able to score a touchdown. During those 3 drives, Kansas City was up 17-0 in the second. It was 20-7 at halftime. So Kansas City had a big lead. So Tom Brady and the Buccaneers were able to slowly come back into this game, and it was impressive they were able to do it. Again, I thought this game could have been a win for the Buccaneers if they were able to start off fast. Unfortunately, because of that slow start, they put themselves in such a hole. It is tough to come back against a Kansas City Chiefs team where the offense is going to be consistently scoring and getting in the red zone. It's tough to come back when you're down so much. So hopefully the Tampa Bay Buccaneers learn from this game and realize that they need to hit the ground running. They need to have a game plan so that they are ready to score right off the bat. They can't have this many 3-and-outs. It's just never going to work for them, especially against these better, tougher teams. And the Kansas City Chiefs took advantage. As I said, 20-7 at halftime. The game ended up being 27-24, Kansas City winning. And again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did score on the second to last drive, bringing it close to a 3-point lead, but the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't be stopped. You couldn't get the ball back, and they were able to run out the clock. So unfortunately, while they were able to claw back into it, again, that big hole at the beginning was brutal for them, and they were not able to come back from that. Again, though, great game. Loved watching it. Tyreek Hill, incredible performance. Huge fantasy night if you owned him on your team. I know I did, so I was very happy to have him there. All around, though, great stat lines, great matchup. I hope to see more of this matchup. I mean, great to see this matchup in the Super Bowl. Love to see that. But obviously not going to play again this season, and the only chance would be during the Super Bowl. But my hope is obviously we see this there. It was a fantastic all-around, great Sunday afternoon game. And should have been the Sunday night game, to me, in my opinion. I feel like they should have flexed that to the night slot, but they did not, and we were stuck with watching the Packers versus the Bears, and the Bears just be awful, where Nick Foles was replaced by Mitch Trubisky, and I don't know how he's getting replaced by Trubisky because he is terrible on that team. That whole offense also needs an entire rebuild and new identity. But that was the best stories of the week I felt in week 12. Great games all around and just exciting stuff as we headed into Monday for the Eagles matchup. This week, the Eagles had a primetime Monday Night Football slot where they were taking on the Seattle Seahawks, a team that has become somewhat of a rival over the last few years. Great games, obviously, in the playoffs, chances to come and win against them. We've had regular season matchups that have been at least competitive to the end. They've always been the test for the Eagles. It's always been a time to see, can the Eagles stand up against a tough Seattle Seahawks team? And we thought this would be the one where we had a chance for the Eagles to really, get their offense rolling. The Seattle Seahawks come in with the worst statistical pass defense in the league. They were being destroyed by teams. Teams were averaging over 300-plus yards against them through the air. It was just not something that you thought would be that difficult, and something that you hoped Doug Peterson would be able to scheme for and provide a great, game plan to get the Eagles rolling, to try and find an identity, to get them feeling comfortable again in the offense. Unfortunately, what you end up having was the defense was playing lights out to start this game. Lights out. The Eagles were able to have 4 drives where the score was still 0-0. The Eagles defense held them to 4th and goal. Kept to turn the ball over. Were able to turn down another 4th down in around, I think, midfield. The defense gave the Eagles plenty of opportunities to stay in this game and have a chance to win. And it's upsetting that the defense, because I want to crush Jim Schwartz, because apparently in the press conference afterwards, Metcalf said that Jim Schwartz said he was not Megatron, and it gave a fire to Metcalf to give him an opportunity to go off in this game, because he would eventually go for 10 receptions, 177 yards, and as long as 52 yards, and all that thanks to Jim Schwartz firing him up. But along with Jim Schwartz as being a fucking idiot, the defense played great. I was pretty shocked. I mean, Darius Slay got blown up by Metcalf throughout the whole game, but at least at the start, there was pressure on Russell Wilson. We were able to get a penetration into the backfield so that they couldn't really get any running game going. On the fourth downs, it was just beautiful work by the defense to recognize the sweeps and to see the fakes, and we're able to get back and really penetrate and stop the end arounds that the Seattle Seahawks love utilizing with more. But in the long run, the offense just was not able to capitalize. On the first 4 drives, the Eagles go with, it was a 3-and-out on the first drive, 3-and-out on the second drive, 3-and-out on the third drive, and then 3-and-out on the fourth drive. And in one of those drives, they got an offside from the Seattle Seahawks that was able to give them 1st and 5. So the first 4 drives were 3-and-outs, all leading to a punt, and the score was still 0-0. And another note I'd like to make about those 4 drives is that for whatever reason, in the first 4 drives of the game, the Eagles went 10 passes and 2 rushes. Now, if you follow the show and you listened last week, you know I have been hounding on the Eagles and Doug Peterson to run the ball more. Based on the Eagles' performance this year and every game they've had, including the misses for the passes and all the negative plays from the passes, the Eagles, on average, net a yard more when they run the ball than pass it. And for whatever reason, this is a pass-first offense. It is the weakest part of the offensive game, and yet Doug Peterson continues to rely on it to be the early tone setter for this team, when you should be running the damn ball. Yet at the beginning of the game, not when they're down, they're not down points, it is still 0-0 in the game. 0-0 in the game, and the Eagles were unable to run the ball more than 2 times. Now, I know we didn't have much success, but I would expect at least to be even. 5 passes, 5 rush. But instead, we have 10 passes, 2 rush. 6 and 6. But instead, 10 pass and 2 rush. I mean, what is the game plan all in the strategy? Like, I know it's the worst passing defense in the league, but it's also your worst asset. So why aren't you just continuing to pound the ball up, create the opportunities so that the Seahawks are afraid of the run game, play action, get Carson Wentz rolling out, and then get the ball going? It's not that hard. Just simplify this offense to be creative and smart against your opponent. Instead, 2 out of the 4 first drives, we get a sack on Carson. Carson was sacked 6 times this game as well. And we're unable to generate any real positive yardage. They had negative yardage in the first quarter. That's terrible. And until the last drive in the second, at the end of the second quarter, where the Eagles were able to score a touchdown, there was no offensive momentum at all. And just bizarre play calling all around. So I think when we talk about this offense, we are again going to have to break it down into 3 parts. 1, Doug Peterson. 2, the offense as a whole. And 3, Carson Wentz. So going back to Doug, and I'm going to try and take emotion out of this because it's just been so draining on me to be angry about this team, because I think we just need to accept what it is. And this is a very bad team, and they need to blow this team up and just rebuild. But going back to Doug, some of the notes I took throughout this game is just bad decisions after bad decision throughout. Namely, the Hurts-Wentz situation doesn't make any sense at all. You have all last week Doug Peterson saying we're not going to go to Hurts because if we go to Hurts, that means we've given up on the season. And all the reporters and the fans are asking, why is he not playing more? So, of course, Doug Peterson kowtows to the media and the fans and starts giving Hurts more first-team reps this week. And we heard that he's going to be more involved in the game plan. Well, Hurts was out there twice this game. Twice. That's it. In a week where we expected to see a ton of more Hurts, he was out there twice. And not in a row. Hurts went out, and then after he completed a short pass to Alshon Jeffrey, they take him out and put Wentz in. And then they're doing this kind of switch back and forth where it goes Wentz, then Hurts, then Wentz. So you create no rhythm for the quarterbacks. They don't have any comfort in what they're playing. There's not any use to the game plan. And you just keep switching them out without any real plan. So Doug Peterson, I got to ask, what are you doing? What's the plan with Hurts? Are you ever going to utilize his strengths and start leaving him in there for a few drives so we can at least get some momentum and get some comfort with it, take some pressure off of Wentz, and then if you want to put Wentz back in? Right now, there's nothing to lose. Okay, this season, I'm sorry, everyone. If you look at the schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Packers have already opened up with a 9-point favorite on the Vegas spread. I mean, they have a tough schedule. And even though it's a bad division, like, do we want the Eagles really going to the playoffs and getting a worse pick? I mean, they need to have a good draft pick to try and rebuild this team. So if you look at the schedule, if you are realistic, and I'm not trying to be a fair weather fan, I sat through every fucking grueling minute of that game. I sit through all the games. I watch all of them. I am a huge fan going through. But in reality, this season basically is over. So with this season, with such a tough schedule, with the likelihood of getting to the playoffs kind of diminishing with every week, I don't know why we don't just start mixing things up. Leave Hurts in there. See what happens. I mean, you don't have to rely entirely on Wentz. It's not a call that's end of season. So there's that. There's the Hurts-Wentz connection, which makes zero sense for Doug Peterson, how he uses him. He's completely, I mean, even the Saints leave Taysom Hill in longer when Drew Brees is healthy. It's ridiculous. The other part of it, as we mentioned with the first 4 drives, having 2 rushes to 10 passes, Sanders got the ball 6 times. Your running back, who is averaging over 5.7 yards per carry, you gave it to him 6 times. I get it. Game script happens, and all of a sudden you're down, and the situational football dictates you need to pass the ball, but your passes suck, and the play calling for passing sucks. The wide receivers are not getting open. They're not creating any separation. Run the damn ball. Yet you give it to Sanders 6 times. I mean, if that doesn't put you up for worst coach of the year, I have a couple more examples I'll probably get you there. So either Hurts-Wentz situation makes no sense. Sanders gets the ball 6 times. You then go with a terrible challenge where Metcalf seemed to bobble the ball, but if you're going to challenge it on the fumble, it was clearly not a fumble. He had the hand underneath. He made a football move, hit the ground, ball came out. So unless you have someone up there who is shouting in your ear that he did not make a football move and that it could possibly be an incomplete pass, which was your only chance there. The fumble was not going to happen because he hit the ground. So your chance is an incomplete pass. But you've already used up a timeout because you had confusion on the field. So you only have 2 timeouts left. You're down in this game. More than likely, you're going to need a game-winning drive to try and come back. So you waste a challenge and you waste a timeout. So Doug, again, this is just bad game management all around. Poor decisions in the play calling game. You're not getting enough runs in. You don't know what you're doing with Hurts and Wentz, and then you go with this stupid challenge. And again, if that's not going to give you the title of worst coach of the year, I got one more for you. On 4th and 4, when you're down 11 in this game and they're in the red zone, Doug Peterson elects to go for it rather than kick the field goal. It was a chip shot. Even for Jake Elliott, it was a chip shot. And instead, you go for 4th and 4, which was going to be a turnover and downs because the play was terrible. But, even better, Wentz throws an interception. So, again, what is the thinking there? You're down 11. You need 2 scores. Why not get the points? Just take the points. Because at least in the end of the game, when you need to be desperate, you can go for those desperate heaves. You can go for it in the situation. You can try and, put a little urgency in it. But if you get the field goal, it gives you a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie this game up. I don't get why you're going for it. That doesn't make sense. Screw analytics. Play smart football. You've been in this league a long time. So all that together, just to me, Doug, this was your worst game. Your worst game to date. It was so bad. I could not think of anything else other than that was absolutely terrible. So, and again, there's no creativity in this game. None of the wide receivers are getting open. There's no rubs. There's no nothing to really give them a chance to get kind of naturally open. And on top of that, you didn't even use any rollouts except in the second half of Carson again. Again, you decided not to use Carson in a rollout position where he's more comfortable. You keep having to sit in the pocket where he's getting hammered. He needs to get out of that pocket. The offensive line cannot block for him a clean pocket. He is sacked 6 times. He is now sacked 46 times this season, the most in the league. And as we pointed out last week, the pocket time has been about the same, but the defenders are getting through quicker. And just none of it makes sense, Doug. And in my opinion, he's got to go. he has just completely lost touch with his football team. You either get rid of the play calling or you get rid of Doug. You have to. And now the offense is also playing terrible. The offense is getting nothing out of their receivers. We probably have one of the worst receiver corps in the league. Jalen Reagor couldn't get separation at all in this game. And now I agree, Wentz sometimes is too focused and tunnel vision on it, but because of his weakness in this game and not seeing the field, Doug Peterson is telling him the hot routes of where he wants the ball to go. He sees the one-on-one coverage. He's telling the play is supposed to go to Reagor on that side because Reagor is supposed to have the speed to get separation, be able to go up high and get the ball. But Reagor is not able to get any distance on these cornerbacks. As much as I was proud of Reagor early on, I don't see it right now. He is just not a game-breaking, game-changing wide receiver. He does not have the speed to get separation every time, and he is not able to get up and high point the ball. So you have Reagor, who's really bringing the team down, and then you decide to force Alshon Jeffrey into this lineup. And Alshon Jeffrey dropped a ball, caught two passes, I think it was, but Alshon Jeffrey looks awful. He looks old. He's slow. He's not quick to the ball. His breaks out of his routes are just abysmal. When he cut back for the curl route to get the ball, it was the slowest thing I've ever seen. He looks completely out of it. He does not look excited to play. He doesn't look like the Alshon Jeffrey we expect from him. So why is he out on the field constantly? He's taking away reps from Travis Fulgham, who has been the only bright spot on this wide receiver core. So you have Reagor stinking up the joint. You have Jeffrey, who should not be on the field, yet you're forcing him. So again, bad personnel decisions by the Philadelphia Eagles and by Doug Peterson. And you're forcing this guy out there when really it should be Fulgham taking those snaps. Just fuck him. Get rid of him. He doesn't want to be here anyways. Don't use Jeffrey. Get Fulgham. Get him more practice. Get those reps in for him. At least he has a connection with Wentz. The routes take way too long to develop as well. As we saw on many of those, luckily the camera crew last night was amazing, where you saw on many of the sacks that Wentz took, you look down the field and no one's open. They are completely covered. As we pointed out last week, most of the passes when they're getting thrown, the play develops on those routes about 9 yards down. So we don't even have any quick 5 yards and in. We don't have any slants. They're just not happening. All the wide receiver routes, all these play calls that Doug Peterson is calling is requires the play to develop, which means you need a clean pocket, which means you need this O-line to hold together. And this line is awful. There's been so much changes to this lineup throughout the year. They are not able to get anything going. They are a weak offensive line and unable to protect their quarterback. And you want to continue to call pass plays that require development down the field? You're asking to kill this guy. The play calls make no sense. You're not running the ball. Your pass plays aren't quick and getting the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands. You're not rolling him out. And then when you do call pass play, it has to be developed way down the field. You're just not playing to any of the strengths you have on that field. For whatever reason, Doug Peterson is delusional and believes that his system has to happen, so he's not thinking through any other possibility to this game. The game plan just does not adapt. And then finally, we turn to Carson Wentz, who, as everyone knows, I am an adamant defender of Carson Wentz. I have been there to show that he has talent. His stats put him in the top of the league every year, that he is a decent quarterback and could be developed into a great quarterback. But, oh my God, he is so bad this year. Oh, people, Carson Wentz is just so uninspiring to watch in this game. He has really become just a bottom-tier quarterback. That's as simple as that. He does not see the field at all. He has missed tons of open wide receivers and tight ends. The seam route to Dallas Goedert that he missed was just incredibly, terribly missed that. The only time Alshon Jeffrey had a good play where he had to step on a quarterback, Carson misses that. Carson is basically reading his first two reads, and that's it. He's not able to progress through it all. I think that there's something with him getting hit so this many times that he does not trust his offensive line, and he is trying to get the ball to the first or two wide receivers, and that's it, or he's running. And he's running scared. This poor guy is trying to just get something to happen, and he can't get it done. Now, again, I'm sorry. It sounds like I'm defending him. I'm not. His throwing is terrible. He is overthrowing, underthrowing all the wide receivers that are going 20 yards plus down the field. He has no connection with them. He had 2 plays where he was not on the same page with wide receiver at all, with the first one being, I think it was Richard Rodgers, who he thought was going to go right, ended up going left, and luckily the ball was intercepted, but it was in the red zone as well. Then you have later on the interception on the 4th and 4 play, he thinks Dallas Goedert is going to go right. Again, Dallas Goedert moves left, reading the cornerback, and Carson goes right, and it goes straight into the arms of the safety. So he's not in connection with any of his wide receivers. He doesn't have that kind of, in sync mindset he had with Zach Ertz. That's just not happening right now with any of the tight ends. He's not able to connect with anyone down the field. It's just all the mechanics are just digressing and getting worse and worse. And for whatever reason, he just cannot see the field. I mean, I don't know what they're doing in film study, but Carson Wentz is just not able to see the play develop. And you want to root for this guy because he has done great things for this team. He has been a hell of a talent in and out, and you think that he can become a great player in this league. But whatever they're doing during the practice weeks and in film session, it is just not working. They are not connecting to him at all. So, like I said, look, I'm not trying to create excuses for Carson Wentz, but this whole offense is terrible. Carson Wentz has no time to throw the ball, so he's never able to get through all his progressions and see every wide receiver open. He's always sticking to the hot read that he gets. He's not able to make, I would say, great pre-snap decisions based on kind of the stress he's always under. And on top of that, you have Doug Pearson not running the ball enough to alleviate any pressure on the defense from Carson Wentz. So again, Carson Wentz, I want to reiterate this again. Carson Wentz is bad this year, very bad. But I still do not think it all rests on him. The wide receivers are terrible. We had a lot of hope early back. They're just not getting it done. They can't create any separation. When you look at the game film, they're just not open. Now, there are a few that have been open that Carson missed, and that's all on him. But throughout that game, they were not open. And the play calling is so bad. The decision-making play calling by Doug Peterson is so bad. I don't get it. I just don't get it. What happened to this guy? He was one of the most innovative play callers in the first 2 seasons, and now it's just become, ugh. I mean, this offense is so bland. There is nothing exciting about it. There's no creativity. No matter what Doug Pearson tries to spin in the press conference, there is zero creativity on this offense. The playbook is about as vanilla as it gets. It just makes zero sense of why they are able to play this way. It's embarrassing. I think the Eagles have a long way to go. I think they need to blow it up. You need to get rid of Howie Roseman. Unfortunately, as the commentators during the game last night made painfully aware that the drafting of this organization has been awful, that they have never hit on any of those skill set positions that they draft. The wide receivers, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was drafted over DK Metcalf. Look how that turned out for you. DK Metcalf has been a star. They've completely missed. Justin Jefferson is a star on the Vikings, and they went with Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. They just continuously make poor decisions in the draft, and it allows no development for this team, no growth from this team, and it's just stale. The offense is stale. The players' development is stale. Everything's bad. I think Carson Wentz would do great to be traded. He's not going to be because of his contract. He's here for the long haul. I think you got to get rid of Doug Peterson, get rid of Howie Roseman, blow up that whole front office organization, get rid of the coaches, start fresh, and get someone that you think can complement the talents of Carson Wentz, because you're stuck with him, right? You're stuck with Carson Wentz. You can bench him if you want to, but he's still on your team. So you might as well try and utilize him as best you can. And you need a coach like Frank Reich who is able to see the strengths of Carson Wentz, build a game plan around those strengths, and then use it to his full advantage. Like, I just don't get why Doug Pearson is not moving Carson Wentz out of the pocket. It's insane. We watch this football game, and there are some things that are so simple, so easy to read that's going on, and you just go, how is he not seeing it? How? He's supposed to be a head coach of football league, and we're able to see on our TVs. Right? It just doesn't make sense. I'm infuriated with him. I mean, I'm calmer now because it's just what it is. You watch and just this is what you expect from this team. But there's no way they're going to win against those winning teams the rest of the week. I mean, they got Arizona and Green Bay coming up. I mean, where are you going to get a win there? It's terrible. And I don't know if they're going to beat the Washington football team or the Giants again. Oh, sorry, not playing the Giants. I don't know if they're going to beat the Washington football team or the Cowboys. I don't. I think that those teams will be very much competitive and probably beat them. So maybe you sit Wentz and you play Hurts, but is Hurts going to do any better with an offensive line that can't block and wide receivers that aren't going to get open? I don't think so. He might have some moments because he can move his feet and get outside the pocket better, but I mean, this team is just not a good team. and you really need to rebuild, and you need a high draft pick. You need to get someone in the front office that can evaluate skill, because for whatever reason, this team does not value certain talent. And they've overlooked talent consistently, and they go always for someone they think is going to be some undervalued asset, and is just not. It just hasn't worked out. They have drafted horribly over the last few years. Under the Howie Roseman regime, their drafting is terrible, and that needs to be fixed. So I'm calling on Jeffrey Lurie. You got to fire Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman. You got to get this going, get the whole fresh, clean slate there. Find someone that can complement to Carson Wentz. Try and develop Carson Wentz for the last till 2024 when you have him through contract. Then you can cut him, move on from there. Maybe I would say draft a quarterback in the next few years if you have the opportunity, someone that you can sit on the bench and develop behind him. If Hurts is that answer, then you stay with Hurts. Just let him sit on the bench, continue to grow and develop. Let Carson Wentz take this beating as it is right now, and then get him off to another team or just cut him in 2024. But for now, you got to clean house. It is just bad. There needs to be better skill set positions. I mean, you got to utilize Sanders. Just all of it. Everything Doug does makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. I get it that Carson Wentz is terrible, but it makes no sense what Doug is doing. I'm just so mad this is my team. But in the end, obviously, the score was 23-17. Looked a lot closer because of a Hail Mary touchdown to Richard Rodgers towards the end of the game, and a 2-point conversion that they were able to get done late in the game. But obviously, it was basically over. It's 23-9, really. That's the true score of that game. Carson Wentz, 25 of 45 times he threw the ball. 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He was the lead rusher with 42 yards on 5 carries. As I mentioned, Sanders had 6 carries, 15 yards. And Russell Wilson, 22 of 31, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, and Metcalf going off for 10 receptions, 177 yards, with his longest reception being 52 yards. Again, Carson Wentz, 45 times he threw the ball. 45 times. I think it was like 16 for the rush. I mean, it just, there is no continuity in this team. There's no game plan. There's no strategy. There is nothing for this team. There's no identity. And Doug Peterson needs to find all of that and find it quick. Otherwise, he needs to be gone. Out. Get him out. Get rid of him. I can't sit on the laurels of, hey, we won a Super Bowl. You have to just move on. You have to say, thank you for what you did. Let's go. We're moving forward. Because it is really bad right now, folks. I mean, it cannot get worse. On that note, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. It's been a fun one, this one, especially post-Thanksgiving. Thank you guys for sticking with us and continuing to join and listening on the show, giving our reactions to, obviously, the big storylines of the Week 12, hitting on the big games, such as Kansas City Chiefs versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then, obviously, giving our kind of analysis and breakdown of the Philadelphia Eagles matchup against the Seattle Seahawks, which was a doozy in itself. We appreciate all your support. Give us a follow and obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the videos of these podcasts. Thank you guys. Continue to listen in for us. Continue to join in for the show. Appreciate your support. Until next time, have a good evening and good night. Thank you for listening to the ChadBurn Show. Remember to check out all new episodes every Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all major platforms where you listen to your podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me and you want to send in your questions or requests for topics to discuss in the show, you can email chadburn.show@gmail.com. All episodes have video recorded, which is then posted to our YouTube channel, The ChadBurn Show. Be sure to subscribe to us where you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all our new content. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ChadBurn Show and on Facebook, The ChadBurn Show, to see clips from previously recorded episodes and information on all upcoming shows.